Jer si milostivi čovekoljubiv Bog i tebi slavu uznosimo, Otcu i Sinu i Svetome Duhu, sada i uvek i u vekove vekova.
In a world of shadows and secrets untold, where primeval stories make the brave go cold, mighty gods on high and realms below, whispers of legends that shape each soul. And nightmarish dreams, cryptids lurking, nothing's as it seems. Giants walking, angels and demons fight. Only truth can bring the light. Through the echoes of time, the tales unfold. Mysteries arise as the prophecies are foretold. From valiant knights to buried treasure, this podcast brings nothing but pleasure. Welcome to myth, mysteries and majesty. Study with us and don't be a travesty. Theology, mythology, fantasy and horror, from dungeons and dragons to Skyrim and Mordor. The powers haunt the evening in gothic castles where they're screaming. Wizards cast spells in their towers tonight, exploiting enigmas hidden from our sight. Archaeologists make excavations deep on the ancient tombs where pharaohs sleep. In the dust of ages we chronicles keep, storytelling's power of monsters that creep. Mysteries and majesty is the place for you to learn about this haunted space. From scholarship to manuscripts of old, unlock the secrets of wisdom and gold.
Blessed Sunday, everyone. Welcome to this third chapter of your favorite 3M podcast. Tonight, we are again with our dear friend and co-host, Shaun. Unfortunately, tonight, it won't be one of those amusing, funny episodes where we're in great mood because the topic is Christian persecution in Nigeria. So we want to assess this topic with faithfulness and accuracy to the information, to the best of our abilities, to the information we found. I made a touch with a friend who knows a Nigerian pastor, and the goal was that I would compile questions, which I did, some of them, sent to this friend in common, and that he would forward these questions to the Nigerian pastor, and that he would respond because he knows information firsthand. However, pastor got busy, and I never got answers to my questions, so we'll be dissecting different videos and articles found online, not just recently, because as some of you may be surprised, these religious/political escalations in Nigeria going as far as 40s and 50s and 60s of the previous century back in Nigeria. And it's not just a religious conflict. So we don't want to make this as, oh, look at those, all Muslims in the world are bad and all Christians in the world are amazing. No, that's not a point. The point is that different people are suffering there, not only Christians, also what we will call mild Christian, mild Muslims. So Muslims who are not brainwashed and becoming more aggressive as those who are turning on the side of terrorists, they're also suffering. However, our focus will be on brothers and sisters, Christians, and their churches in Nigeria. So again, welcome to episode 203. We're tonight with Shaun. Shaun, man, it's very hard not to think about this topic because it's been prevalent in the media the last couple of weeks. What is your overall impression of everything? When you see all those pictures of kids and people, civilians in Nigeria being dying, you see the blood, you see all those ruined churches. It may sound harsh when I say this, but I think this is why God invented hell. Besides putting the fallen ones who rebel against him, this is why this place exists. What are your overall thoughts when it comes to this persecution in Nigeria?
Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, it's definitely a more complex issue than what we're really being told on either side. Um, the fact of the matter is that, over the last 5, 6 years, we've got thousands of Christians that are suffering. But it's not as cut and dry as just a religious persecution. There are, of course, religious motivated attacks, as it would probably surprise some of us on both sides. There are attacks against Muslims perpetrated by Christians. Um, and if you look at some of the statistics, the death toll actually is higher on the Muslim side than it is on the Christian side as far as religiously motivated attacks. So this isn't as cut and dry as what you would like to believe. Yes, there are Christians suffering, but there's also Muslim suffering, and Nico, as you said, the moderate Muslims who don't want to be involved with the radical Islamic group, the ISIS tentacles, the Boko Haram. They just want to be left alone. They're suffering with greater casualties than the Christians in the South. So this is a really complicated issue, and it's not something that can be resolved just from us going in and trying to police them. Part of the issue is that the government's extremely corrupt in Nigeria. Part of the issue is this is happening in a very rural area. Not a lot of cities. There's not a lot of things going on. I mean, this is tangential to the Sahara Desert. So you have a lot of things that are compounding effects that are happening that cause this to be an issue where there's little oversight and people just take the law into their own hands.
Yeah, and that's a good addition and a good introduction to what I've been saying. So yeah, please, if you're a Christian, and I know that most of the people who are watching us, especially faithfully, they're all Christians or most of them. So this is not about hating anyone. This should impress on our hearts to pray even harder. Not just for Christians, not to say, "Oh God, save Christians in Nigeria," but atheists, Muslims, and if there's any other religious group, just smite them, or we don't care about them. No, God, deal with terrorists and put better government in Nigeria, but also protect innocent people when it comes to all these conflicts and wars. Because imagine you're just minding your own business, you're just trying to raise a family, you're just trying to make I don't even know what is the currency in Nigeria, but let's say $1. You're just trying to make $1 to feed your family, and someone comes and tells you, hey, if you don't hate Christians enough, or if you don't do this enough, even if you're Muslim, you're not good enough Muslim, we're gonna kill you and your family. I mean, how would you even feel about, like, can you even put yourself in those shoes? You can't. So if you're tonight, enjoying either AC or heat in your home, have a cup of tea or tea or whatever you're enjoying from the, you know, from your sofa or from your recliner, rejoice and praise God, because many people in the world are being persecuted because of faith. So this is just the continuation of the what the first church has been going through. So you can praise God, but also pray for people who are, and we'll soon find out, not just in Nigeria, that whole region has been terrorized by these terrorist groups for decades. We have a number of articles and a few short videos to share with you tonight. The first one comes from a surprise, surprise, Russian Orthodox website that published this article in October 2014. Website is called Pravoslavlye, which is basically Orthodox or Orthodoxy. And it's called "1,000 Churches Destroyed in Nigeria." It's a bit of a lengthy article, and whenever we see lengthy articles, we won't read everything. But this is coming from 11 years ago, and as you can tell, it sounds like almost it was written a couple of weeks ago. And it starts by mentioning Pakistan, but then it goes to different countries. Of course, it will mention Nigeria as well, but it mentions Christian persecutions in many, unfortunately, predominantly Muslim countries, or at least regions. So, for example, in 2014, a court in Pakistan upheld the death penalty for Asia Bibi, a Christian mother of four. She's accused of having made derogatory remarks about Islam after neighbors objected to her drinking water from their glass because she was not a Muslim and therefore unclean. Imagine being turned by your neighbors to the government and facing death penalty because you drank water after someone else. Yeah, because you're unclean. A successful Christian school in the United Kingdom was warned that it would be downgraded by inspectors and might even face closure after failing to invite a leader from another religion, such as a Muslim imam, to lead assemblies. A government consultation paper makes clear that even taking children on trips to different places of worship would not be enough to be judged compliant. And of course, this is happening in extremely liberal Western European countries. So when you saw in the last several years, led by Trudeau in Canada, stuff like that, it's not a coincidence because this is spreading like cancer. This ideology. Then they told me that since I refused to convert to Islam, that they would kill me. They pinned me down and told me they will make death painful and slow, as they were not prepared to waste bullets on me. They said, "Be warned that if any of you Muslims dares to assist him, he's also an infidel, and we shall make sure that he too is killed." Adamo, a Christian in Nigeria. They are searching for me to cut my throat. When I go to mass, I say I'm going to English classes because I plan to travel. Tarek, a convert to Christianity in Lebanon. Oh my God, my heart started jumping fast when I read that sentence. Like I feel it like in my throat. Imagine you're a boy or a young, whew, or just like a young adult, and you have to lie. Unfortunately, you're going to take some classes, so you cannot even attend a church. And how do we deal with this? How do we learn to not allow emotions to take away the love of that God tells us to have towards even the worst of the worst, such as terrorists, and on the other side to be just and to be on fire for God? How do we make this decision? How do we even act where we should put a guard in front of our mouth and not react instantly when we hear stories like this, and not trying to be vengeful but leave it to the Lord? Because as we know, sometimes our theologies and reading the Bible and emotions don't always work together. Sometimes they're in conflict. Sometimes it's like, I wish this, but then like you're called to do this. Can you please share some wisdom with us? And I'll stop here because honestly, this last sentence about this boy made me really emotional and upset.
So what little wisdom I have to bring to bear on this subject is that we would pray for those who are persecuting us, that we would pray mainly that they would repent. We would pray that that God would bless them with eyes to see that they're wrong. When you say we, how do we deal with it? It's difficult because as individuals, we interact with it differently than we do collectively. So collectively, I would say that, especially being in a liberal Western nation, that collectively we are able to vote and we're able to move the arm of the government. And part of loving your neighbor is bringing to bear the sword on people like this to destroy them, because they will do this to other people. So part of loving your neighbor means killing those that that would try to upset peace. But on an individual basis, we can pray for them. We can try to be a good witness to them, and especially in the West, in a democratic country like the United States, constitutional republic, but you know what I mean, democratic in the sense that we all kind of get a vote. We all are part of this mechanism that is the government. We kind of have to hold those two in tension, where we're willing to extend the hand of peace to our enemy on an individual basis, and yet when we go to the ballot box, we keep in mind that they are our enemy.
Okay, let's continue reading. The police, far from interfering, actually incited the Muslim men. With no one on hand to know what is going on, it's easier to mistreat them. Jason DeMars, president from Present Truth Ministries. About 100,000 Christians die every year because of their religious beliefs. The Center for the Studies of global Christianity in the United States. And again, this is statistics from 11 years ago. In just 2 months, from August to October, nearly 200 Christian churches were destroyed in Nigeria by the Islamic organization Boko Haram and its Muslim allies. This is why I'm saying that this article, even though 11 years old, it sounds like it was written just a couple of weeks ago. After their capture of towns and villages in the northeastern states of Borno and Adamawa. In the words of Reverend Gideon Obasogi, the director of Catholic Social Communication of Maiduguri Diocese in Borno State. I need a medal for all of these pronunciations. He said the following: the group's seizure of territory in both states has seen 185 churches torched. Oh, Lord. 185 churches. Can you imagine in these 11 years how many churches more were destroyed? Hundreds. And over 190, so almost 200,000 people displaced by their insurgency. Obasogi added that Boko Haram's ransacking and torching of churches was, quote, sad, heart-aching, and potentially dangerous to the territorial integrity and common good of Nigeria. Man, I think this is said in such a mild, such a mild language, and I would say it. Potentially dangerous. Potentially dangerous is when you have a criminal on the street and police is trying to catch him. That's potentially dangerous for the citizens. After displacing 200,000 people and burning almost 200 churches, it's more than potentially dangerous. And then he continues saying, our priests are displaced while citizens are counting their losses and regrets as they have been reduced to the status of internationally displaced persons. Where's the freedom? Life is really terribly difficult. And that's an understatement. In 2011, hundreds of Christians were killed and 430 churches destroyed or damaged in Nigeria by Boko Haram. In 2012, 900 Christians were slaughtered and an unknown number of churches destroyed. In 2013, 612 Christians were slaughtered and approximately 300 churches destroyed. This suggests that in the last 4 years alone, approximately 1,000 Christian churches have been destroyed by Boko Haram and its Muslim sympathizers in a nation that is approximately half Christian, half Muslim. Moreover, according to an October Human Rights Watch report, Boko Haram has so far been responsible for killing a little over 2,000 people in 2014, a number that likely exceeds that previous 4 years put together. A typical church attack in Nigeria that occurred in October was reported as follows. Armed Muslim extremists stormed 2 churches in Taraba State on Sunday, October 19. Man, that's the day when I came to the state. It's so eerie. And killed 31 people as they worshipped. 2 pastors, 1 pastor's son, and 28 other Christians were slain in the attacks. According to the Reverend Caleb Ahema, president of the Christian Reformed Church of Christ in Nigeria, the attacks on Christians in Taraba State is a planned genocide against Christians by Islamic insurgents who have invaded the southern part of the state, inhabited mostly by Christians since February. Okay, let's just read one more eyewitness report, and then we'll be done with this article because it has really a lot of information. And I provided all of these links to the episode descriptions. You can check all of these sources by yourself. So the experiences of Adamu, a 28-year-old Christian man who refused to abjure Christianity for Islam, appeared in October. One day while working on his farm, a Boko Haram member came to him, and this was the dialogue. Well, I mean, this is the eyewitness report. He told me to convert to Islam and join them in waging a jihad to establish an Islamic state in Nigeria. I told him that I will not renounce my Christian faith in order to embrace Islam. He left me there on my farm, of course, because they're cowards, just like gang members. They're cowards just when they're one, especially if they don't have any weapon. But he probably came back with more people. So he left me there on my farm without saying anything again. 2 days later, 5 other Boko Haram members showed up. I knew it. I didn't even read the story because they're cowards. They said their members told them that I refused to renounce being a Christian and wanted to know whether it is true that I refused to become a Muslim. Adamu repeated his decision again. They then told me that since I refused to recant, they would kill me. They pinned me down and told me they will make death painful and slow, as they're not prepared to waste their bullets on me. And this is the part of the story we heard from the beginning of this article. They also said they would not give me the honor of slaughtering me by cutting my neck from the front, because that is the way they slaughtered their rams. They forced me down on my stomach and then proceeded to slaughter me by cutting my neck from the back. I was bleeding and went blank as the knife cut through my neck. Again, this is why hell exists. So while it's horrible, on the other side, hey, it's the way to deal with evil. There's no other way. It was pains. It was pains. That's what it literally says. It was pains I cannot explain to you. After cutting my neck, they left me bleeding because they thought he's about to die. It was only after I was taken to the hospital that I was told that the Boko Haram members who attacked me on the farm had gone to the village shortly after leaving me bleeding to death, and had warned other Muslims that if any of them dares to rescue me, he would be killed. They sternly warned other Muslims in Musari by saying the following: "We have butchered an infidel there on his farm. Be warned that if any of you Muslims dare to assist him, he's also an infidel, and we shall make him that he too is killed." Days later, a fellow Christian snuck onto the farm and rescued the barely living man. I'll stop here. So as we can tell, there are good Muslims over there who don't care to be joining this so-called holy war, who don't plan to spread Islam by force, who don't plan to be involved in jihad, and they cannot even fight against evil and prevent evil and do something good, like help their neighbor. Because who cares about what religion you are? If you're bleeding, you call 911 or whatever, and the number in your countries, regardless of their color, ethnicity, or religion. Who cares about it when someone is dying? But they're not allowed because terrorists will come back and then kill that family. Whew. The whole article has so many eyewitness reports from different predominantly Muslim countries, as we see Egypt, well, Germany is not, but still incidents there, Iraq, Philippines, Sudan, again, that was Iraq, this is Iran, Kazakhstan, Lebanon, Malaysia, Pakistan again, Sudan again, Uzbekistan, Egypt again. So there's so many stories on this Orthodox site that was published in 2014. So 11 years ago. Check it out. Before we switch to the next one, Shaun, any impressions, any advice?
Yeah, despite what we hear from the article, we know that Boko Haram is not able to act with impunity in Nigeria. The government, one of the reasons that they can't really spare the people to interact in the Middle Belt is because they are fighting Boko Haram in the Northeast, because they do see them as a terrorist group. And so Nigeria as a state does not support Boko Haram. They are considered a extremist militant group and their views are not representative of the Muslims in Nigeria. As you see through the reports, they're threatening Muslims because they know that a Muslim, even a decent human being who happens to be a Muslim, would, under normal circumstances, risk their life to help to save somebody. And they're threatening death against anybody who would be so inclined. So I think that's important to say that they're not acting with impunity. They are being opposed by the Nigerian military at this time. And so most of the cases that we will see of Christian persecution happening today actually come from the Middle Belt, not the Northeast, where people ended up, leaving their homes and traveling westward in Nigeria.
Yeah, man, it breaks my heart. This is horrible. Okay, let me stop sharing that screen. And on the next article, it's also an older one because I want people to see that this is not a new problem. So this is from persecution.org. Christians worship inside a burned church in Nigeria from April 2023. So this is only 2 years ago, but as we can see, nothing new, nothing new. And Shaun, churches, people, I need parking. Is there children's ministry? Do you have coffee? Is the AC working well? Look at these people being faithful to God, coming well, there's nothing, like bullets can literally enter through those holes where windows and doors used to be. They're literally under the open sky. Like if something happens to me while I'm worshiping and I die, I'm dying. And you know what bothers me? This was my thinking before I went to Moody, before God opened my mind, before He humbled me to listen to Catholics and Orthodox. Many times I would hear stories of martyrs in Middle East or in Africa or in Asia, and they would die. They would like, I'm not renouncing Christ. But I was like, but they're Catholics or they're this or that. Are they even saved? That doesn't make sense. So for me, I was like, and then when God started changing my heart and my approach, I'm like, man, I was so dumb. Like, so what even, and I'm not saying I am right, but even if I would have one or two theological statements or beliefs or understandings better or deeper than some of them, what does that put me on some higher pedestal in front of others who go to different churches or faith traditions? Am I willing to die for Christ like they are? Like, and some of, I'm saying to my humiliation, my former type of thinking, because some Protestants and some evangelicals still have that mindset. Oh, but these Catholics or these Orthodox, yeah, they may be dying for Christ, but they're worshiping Mary and all these idols. So who knows if they're even going to heaven? That's the thinking of so many evangelicals and Protestants. So that's why I'm making a bridge by what I'm saying, how I used to think, how many people still think now who are not Catholics and who are not Orthodox yet. If some of these martyrs, saints in Nigeria or wherever, they die and they're not Protestants, they're not evangelicals, we tend to think, oh, if they're born again, or if they're even saved, that's not your business to judge. On the last moment, they didn't renounce Jesus. What do you want more? What do you want more? They didn't serve another God. They didn't turn to another religion. They didn't turn to another deity. They didn't turn to a demonic deity that is asking for blood. They remained faithful to Jesus, and they paid for that with their ultimate sacrifice. What else do you want? Just because they don't go to your church, that just because they will disagree with you on Eucharist or papacy or church history, or do we have to be baptized or not? Are you kidding me? These people are paying ultimate price for their faith, and you're here thinking, should I take latte? I mean, or should I take a cappuccino before I go to church? Is there enough big enough space, and is the AC put on 70 when I go there? It bothers me. It bothers me because we're so much dissected from the original Christianity. These people will be so much closer to Jesus and the original disciples than us here. And it makes me so upset. Do you want to comment on that before we start dissecting the article?
I'm gonna try really hard not to go on a rant. Okay. Center. All right. So if we look at the original church, the early church, what they did, they were meeting in places where they wouldn't be found out, right? Like they're meeting in these segregated, cloistered places, like people's houses. They weren't necessarily going out into these big gaudy buildings, right? Um, and then,
But
like,
also in the first few centuries of the church, sorry to interrupt, they did have underground buildings. They
mhm,
had those catacombs. They
they
had
did.
caves. They were hiding, right? But it wasn't always a nice big building. That's true.
Right. And so one of the reasons that they chose the catacombs is because the Greek people had this disdain for death. And so there's a book, Cult of the Saints, where Peter Brown basically says that you can chart the progression of Christianity based on the way that people handle relics, because the primitive Greco-Roman had just this disdain for death. And in fact, the idea of like the Gorgons comes from the idea of a decomposing corpse. So it, on one hand, I'm like, "Ah, this is really inspiring. Like, right? They're gathered together, they're doing church. This is a thing. Um, on the other hand, there are some church communities that make it a sin to not attend church. And so are they attending church as an inspiring message, like you can't destroy us, we're here? Or are they dodging gunfire because they're afraid they'll go to hell if they don't come to church? And so you can see the cynicism in me, where I'm like, oh yeah, your church got, shot up and burned down and your members had to show up, but you closed for COVID. Like, don't be a freaking hypocrite, right? Don't, oh, the liturgy and you have to be here for this. You closed for COVID. Like, miss me with that, right? But the gathering together, yeah, it's an important thing. And a joke I was gonna make is, hey, without a roof, their coffee ministry has to be on point, um, in order to get people to show up. But yeah, I have mixed feelings about it because of the fact that on one hand, if you got a gathering of people coming together to pray and say, "This is not gonna break us. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna persevere," like that's beautiful. But if you're coming from, and it looks, looks Catholic to me. If you're coming from a Roman Catholic background or an Eastern Orthodox background where it's like, you have to be here. This is the most important thing. Well, y'all were closed for COVID. I mean, you bent the knee. I remember water gun baptisms. Like, I'm sorry, like you quit trying to trick your congregation into dodging bullets just because they're afraid they're going to go to hell if they miss Sunday.
Okay, fair point. I remember when I was studying at Moody and doing full-time school and full-time job. So one younger student, a young father who didn't work and was failing some classes at Moody, he was trying to become a pastor in church by approaching people and asking them to donate so that he will come up with a monthly, wages, and that would feed him and his family. And he was so strict. He was so strict and against me, missing church on Sunday because I was exhausted. I was sleeping 4 or 5 hours for years because of full-time job and full-time school. And while I was not proud of that, I told him that sometimes I simply have no energy to even get up, with that pain and pressure like on my chest. Like you can't, you're exhausted. And then this young father, basically a kid compared to you, because I finished my school kind of late in my life, comes and judges you, but he doesn't go to work. He's asking people to donate for his money. And he would always go to that passage that, you should not forget the assemblies. You should not, forfeit the gathering of the saints. I'm like, yeah, I know about that verse. Yeah, thank you for making me as a crappy Christian. So yeah, I know about the belief. Like if you are not faithful in attending church on Sunday, ooh, there's something wrong with you. So this is a 2.5 year old article coming from 2023 in Nigeria again. After being attacked by militants on the Easter weekends of 2021 and 22, a Christian farming community in north-central Nigeria's Plateau State gathered to worship again on Good Friday of this year. Oh wow, it was Good Friday. I hope nothing happened to them. The worshippers numbered about 300 persons, including adults, children. That's admirable and brave. Some people would say not wise. I don't want to judge, including senior citizens. Most were seated on the floor, others on stones. The few who could not afford it sat on plastic chairs they bought for themselves. Let me just increase the font size. Okay. Fortunately, the militants did not visit the village this year. Still, the memory of the recent trauma was felt at the service. Fulani militants burned our churches and houses, including the pastor's house, a church leader told the ICC staffer after the Good Friday service. An ICC staffer visited the community in 2021 and 2 after the Easter weekend attacks. In one, an ethnic Fulani pastor was among those killed. His church was destroyed and his cattle were rustled. In 2021, the militants burned over 500 houses in a hamlet of over 2,000 Christians who were displaced to Jos City, 35 kilometers, about 20 miles from the village, or to the main town of Miango. When the militants attacked the village again following year, they destroyed more houses and crops. We lost everything in the community, and the government refused to help because we're Christians. And I don't doubt that, to be very honest. When you see the videos of the Nigerian presidents and authorities, you would see that they're both incompetent and corrupted. They don't care that much as they're trying to portray themselves. ICC's local staffer was among the 300 worshippers gathered this year. The service was held in a church without a roof, as we saw in the photo. Sometimes we worship in the rain, said the church's pastor. I suffered from pneumonia due to the cold. The pastor also contracted hepatitis and could not pay the hospital bills of whatever the currency over there is. Though friends and family help him, I'm still undergoing medical treatments, he said, but I'm passionate to preach the gospel of Christ. Man, man, I can only envision and hope when one day when these Christians, and including their pastors, who lost everything, literally everything, once when they stand before Christ, they'll receive massively their reward. Imagine almost dying from pneumonia because you don't want to postpone the church service even though it's raining. I mean, I don't know. I'm speechless. The pastor encouraged his congregants to forgive for the sake of Christ who died for their sins, reading from Mark 15. A woman leader of the church told ICC that the church population dropped after the attack and their financial contributions along with it. She expressed the need for help to repair the roof, rebuild Pastor House, and everything else. Okay. Militants have attacked over 45 forming Christian communities in the Rigwe chiefdom in Plateau in recent years. Their attacks have destroyed many buildings, including 13 churches from Yango City, and so on and so on. It's a shorter article with this photo that I think it may stay in my head till my last breath, including those where churches are in ruins, even from more recent times, and people are still coming, and you can see blood almost everywhere. Shaun, what will be your thoughts?
Yeah, man, it's crazy that they're, not only coming together, but talking about forgiving their enemies. I mean, that's something that needs to be. Yeah, it would be hard to preach in a church at a time like that when you feel so wronged, to preach to forgive the enemies. I think it's inspiring that willing to preach in the rain and even get pneumonia from that, for wanting to feed the flock from the Word of God. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, sorry, I was reading all these comments that happened while I was reading the text. Okay, switching to the next one. It's a short one, but it's an important one because of the statistics. So as we see on the screen, when it comes to the World Watch ranking, Nigeria is number 7 in the world. That's not good when it comes to religious freedoms, especially Christianity, but not just Christianity, because as we heard a couple of times, even if you're Muslim, but you're not so dedicated to Sharia, jihadist, holy war, and whatnot, you may be even a target by other Muslims who are more aggressive in their approach than you. So this comes from opendoors.org. Of course, it's a reputable Christian website. And it's a short one. It says, what does persecution look like in Nigeria? Jihadist violence continues to escalate in Nigeria, and Christians are particularly at risk from targeted attacks by Islamist militants, including Fulani fighters, Boko Haram, and ISWAP, Islamic State West Africa Province. These increased under the rule of former President Muhammadu Buhari, putting Nigeria at the epicenter of targeted violence against the church. The government's failure to protect Christians and punish perpetrators has only strengthened the militants' influence, which proves my point that I was saying that the Nigerian government is not really doing their best to fight the terrorists. While Christians used to be vulnerable only in the Muslim-majority northern states, this violence continues to spread in the Middle Belt and even further south. The attacks are shockingly brutal. Many believers are killed, particularly men, while women are often kidnapped and targeted for sexual violence. Help us, Lord. More believers are killed for their faith in Nigeria than anywhere else in the world. I didn't know this. I honestly did not know this. These militants also destroy homes, churches, and livelihoods. More than 16.2 million Christians in sub-Saharan Africa, including high numbers from Nigeria, have been driven from their homes by violence and conflict. millions now live in displacement camps. Christians living in northern Nigerian states under Sharia, which is Islamic law, can also face discrimination and oppression and as second-class citizens. Converts from Islam often experience rejection from their own families and pressure to renounce their new faith. They often have to flee their homes for fear of being killed. In 2023, Bola Tinubu was elected as the new president of Nigeria. Although both he and his predecessor are Muslim, the new president has carried out a major reshuffle. This has provided a better representative balance of the two faith in leadership position under President Buhari. It was hoped this would lead to acknowledging the human rights violations against Christians and to more effective intervention by security forces to protect Christians. However, this did not happen to a tangible extent during the World Watch List 2025. So this is an article that was recently written. The persecution of believers is most common in the northern Muslim majority states where Christian communities in rural areas are particularly vulnerable to violent attacks. However, attacks are increasingly spreading southward to where the majority of Nigeria's Christians live. Now, there are more eyewitness reports. So this is from one guy, Abraham. What has changed this year? Unfortunately, very little. What does Open Doors, which is this website organization, what are they doing to help Christians? So yeah, you can partner with them, you can send money, you can pray, and you can donate. But my point is of why I wanted to share this a short article is because Open Doors, they're not political website. Even if some, let's say, right-wing political forces in the states, let's say they want to exaggerate or even lie. Like I heard these stories and rumors recently. Open Doors is a Christian organization. They have nothing to do with politics. This is their statistics. This is their world watching ranking. You can check this online. If they put these statistics in this description, you can bet it's true. So it's not as bad as it used to be. This new president is trying to help, as depicted here. He's also a Muslim, but unfortunately, things are not happening that fast and that much better for Christians nowadays compared to the previous president. Are you familiar with the new president or any of his politics or anything that he has done for Christians? And if not, how are you taking this article? Is it maybe a little bit encouraging for you?
Yeah, so for me, from my understanding, the main problem that's causing Christians to die is happening, as I've said before, in that middle belt area between northern Nigeria and southern Nigeria. And it's the Muslims, as the article said, live predominantly in northern Nigeria, and the Christians live predominantly in southern Nigeria. And so in that area of the middle belt, you have uh, kind of like this percolation of, you have some of the Muslim settlements and some Christian settlements. And along with that, this is the main grassland that the herders traverse. And so there was plans that were set up during the time of colonization that allowed for certain routes uh, of the herders that would the herd migrations that would keep them away from the farmers. But as the soil there is so bad, as the population is growing, the farmers continued to spread, gaining more and more ground until eventually they ate up almost all of the migration land. And so now you have herders that are literally going through the farming settlements, and their animals are eating the crops. And along with this, because of the advent of things like refrigeration, the herders used to trade milk and cheese to the farmers for grain. Now they don't trade anymore because they have access to refrigerated food and beverage, so they don't need that from the herders. So that now there's this conflict of the herders propose almost or no benefit to the farmers, and the farmers are see the herders as nothing more than a nuisance. And so there's this conflict that happens. The herders are almost always Muslim, and the farmers in the South are the Christians that are the ones that are getting that end of the stick. But actually, the violence of the herders against farmers is more concentrated to the north. So they're actually more interacting with Muslim farmers than Christians. But when they are interacting with the Christian farmers in the South, that's where we get a lot of our statistics from. Is you have herder raids against farmers where they're trying to take their supplies, or trying to take their food, even try to take their cattle to add to their herds. And then you also have farmers retaliating against the herders, and they themselves are uh, erecting militias in order to attack herdsmen that are in the area. So it's an issue where there's not enough ground to go around. The population is booming in Nigeria, so there's lots of people. You have lots of people that are hungry. There's not a lot of ways to make food in those or make money in those rural areas. So these guys are kind of stuck in these trades. They're mostly uneducated people, so it's not like they could. And by uneducated, I don't mean necessarily illiterate, but they don't have the skill qualifications necessary to be able to maybe go to the cities and work in some of those areas, because these are very rural, set aside areas that these people have lived for generations. And so, without some sort of government interference coming in and forcing a change, there's not going to be a change. And as the farmers continue to eat up ground in order to be able to maintain their fields and maintain the size of their families, and as the herders basically have no path left for feeding their migrating flocks, there's going to continue to be violence is just going to be continuing.
Okay, thank you for that detailed comment. So, man, you can imagine how bad things are when even someone like Bill Maher is trying to draw attention to the of the public to what's happening in Nigeria. It's like, why would he even care? Well, there must be something really seriously happening. So for people who say, "Oh, this is exaggerated. Oh, there is no, Christian persecution or hatred in Nigeria," like the authorities in Nigeria are saying, and we'll hear soon. We'll soon hear that video. I just want to show you that, like, why in the world would Bill Maher say it if it's not true? Like, who cares? Why would he care if he's not a Christian? So political satirist, I can't pronounce that. Sorry for that. Bill Maher, who has been often a vocal critic of Christianity, recently called attention to the persecution of Christians in Nigeria, calling the ongoing violence as a genocide attempt. And as he says, I'm not a Christian, and we all know that. But they're systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. He said during the September 26th episode of his HBO show, Real Time with Bill Maher. They've killed over 100,000 people since 2009. They burned 18,000 churches, Maher said, referring to violent Islamists in Nigeria such as Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza, he continued. He has a good point. They're literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country. Now, listen to this part. I love this following section. And if you're more on a liberal side, you will not like this, but we're here to speak truth in love. So here we go. Were the kids protesting this? It's a good question from a non-Christian, someone who would rather be identified as a liberal than conservative, and certainly not a religious person. Where are the kids protesting this? Where are the kids on the streets? Just in the same way they're trying to say, "Oh, we're protecting female female sexual rights," or they're trying to, protect whatever is happening currently in our political atmosphere in the country. I won't even go there. I don't want to mention those things. It's not a political podcast. I don't want to put podcasts in trouble. But whatever people have been protesting in the last year, they're protesting usually for the same 2-3 reasons. Were the kids protesting about Christians being killed in Nigeria? Well, not just kids, even adults. Nope, nothing. Okay. The violent persecution of Christians in Nigeria is underreported in Western media. Religious Freedom Institute President David Trimble told CNA. Trimble commending Mayor for raising the issue to, quote, his mass audience, which may otherwise have very little exposure to such weighty issues, noted that the atrocities committed against Nigerian Christians can rightly be labeled as genocide. But again, you won't hear this. You will hear about Palestine. You will hear about maybe Ukraine, it's not popular anymore for whatever reason. It's you'll just hear about the same stories and same reasons for people protesting massively outside. Nigeria is the most dangerous place in the world to be a follower of Jesus. Over the last decade, Islamist extremists have killed approximately 4,000 Christians there annually. Since July 2009, more than 19,000 Christian churches have been destroyed or looted, while hundreds of clergy, including Catholic priests, have been kidnapped or attacked. Less than 2 weeks ago, a Catholic priest named Father Matthew Aya was murdered while returning from his ministry. Listen, whew, even if your holy book would not tell you to love others, don't you have this fear from whatever God you believe in? By killing, murdering an innocent person and thinking this will bring you closer in the afterlife to your God, where how is raping and killing trying to help you? I know it's because of some verses in your holy book, but just think logically, think spiritual. For the love of God, how is this making you happy? How is making you happy seeing a person you just randomly met on the street going to their holy place? How can I go and kill someone in a mosque or a temple of another religion just because they're not Christians? Where's this hatred coming, and how is this helping you earn your reward in the afterlife? It's a whole demonically influenced perception of reality, including spiritual reality, where killing someone of opposite religion thinks it gives you bonus points in heaven. Newsflash, no, it brings you bonus points in hell. And again, hell was made for not just the fallen ones that rebel against God, but for people like this. This is why hell was made. And in this regard, in this context, hell is amazing because these people will get what they deserve by God, not by us.
If I could just interject for just a minute,
Mhm.
and just clean out our own closet. We as Christians started killing people for what they believe. We are the we are the originators, the OG of murdering people based on what it is that they say that they believe. So yeah, although I agree with you 100%. I think we kind of have to own up to the fact that we kind of started this whole thing, and we were really, really good at it. So I mean, and that goes all the way to Salem, where we were, the Puritans were killing witches, supposedly witches, in Salem for practicing witchcraft, which today is recognized as a normal practice. Now, of course, when we're talking about witches in the sense of Salem, they were talking about supernatural creatures, not really, humans that practice Wicca. But still, you know, um, yeah. So although I agree with you 1,000%, killing people based on what they believe, going into their homes, dragging them out of their homes, dragging them before some sort of tribunal, and killing them is wrong. It is something that we have in our history, and we kind of are the OGs at doing it.
Yeah, in the episode's description, I wrote a lengthy paragraph, and I wrote there that history of the church, so Christianity, we have also issues of killing each other. I haven't mentioned briefly in one sentence 16th and 17th century when Catholics were persecuting and killing Protestants. Not that Protestants are flawless or sinless in any shape or form, but I just gave an example. In medieval times, I also included the church going and killing. I didn't mention the word heretics or witches, but basically also having this so-called holy wars against, like you said, witches or whatever. So it's not that we are perfect, but we're now trying to analyze what is happening in Nigeria by the end of the last century and the beginning of this one. And then you read something like this. I never met a Muslim like this. Muslims I met, they're all nice people, friendly people. They would share something with you, food, buy you something. I have a lot of Muslims at work. no problems with them. It's not like we talk about politics or wars and things like that. We all agree very well they're not like this. So this is why I cannot imagine any of them going and doing this because, oh, you're a priest and I'm a Muslim, therefore I'll take your life. I can't imagine them doing this. So that's what I'm saying. Imagine when you take a few verses from your holy book and whatever exegesis, whatever approach is for you as a extremist Muslim to take those verses, how you take them, and then not even that Christians are your enemies, and not that even you go to take bishops, pastors, and priests and kill their lives as if that will, again, bring you some bonus points to the God you believe in, because that's not the God of the Bible. But you're also turning against your own people because they're not as aggressive and zealous as you. And I mean, it's unless Jesus meets them in some supernatural way, like I've heard so many eyewitness reports that people will have visions and dreams vividly for years and decades in Middle East. That's how they will come to salvation. Jesus will literally appear to them and they'll get saved. Unless that happens to these terrorists, I don't have any hope for their salvation because they're literally, most literally, not figuratively, not metaphorically, they're most literally serving as the extended arm of Satan by turning against mild Muslims, Christians, and others who may not be even religious, but they're scared maybe to admit. Because in some Muslim countries, or at least regions, they're very, zealous and devoted. You can't even say you're atheist. You have to say something. You have to know Quran. You have to say something because you may be attacked, you may be persecuted, maybe even killed. So it's very hard to read some of these stories and some of these statistics. And this is why when we say, come, Lord Jesus, or Jesus, you're the judge, and this is why hell exists, again, I fully stand behind that because Bible backs me up. Edward Clancy, Outreach Director of Aid to the Church in Need USA, said that Christian persecution is at its height in Nigeria. It's the area in the world where most Christians are killed for their faith than anywhere else. It's amazing that it takes Bill Maher to become the voice of Christian persecution in the United States. It's funny, but thank God that he can use anyone, to spread out the news. Expert called the persecution a genocide. There's so much more information, and I'll stop here because I have a few more articles and a few more videos to share. But yeah, this is a Catholic news agency website written by Kat Quinones. Yeah, it's a good one, but we'll stop reading here because of the sake of time. Any concluding thoughts to this article, Shaun?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's terrible that Nigeria is the most dangerous place in the world to be a Christian. But and part of me is like, can that be true? I mean, I know China persecutes their Christians. I know, in Afghanistan after
North Korea, you're dead.
yeah,
You
North Korea,
disappear.
you're dead. In Afghanistan, after we pulled out of Afghanistan, they were butchering Christians left and right. So, part of me is just kind of tentatively believes that, whereas, but I do know that it is dangerous to be a Christian in Nigeria.
Okay, we're switching to another article, and then we'll be dealing with some videos, and they're short. Okay, let's go briefly through this one. 10 things you need to know about violence in Nigeria, and this will give us some context. First one, Christians are indeed under attack. Okay, I provided all the links. You can go read them. Whenever you have time, you can sip your coffee, sip your tea, go slowly through all this data, numbers, names. We don't have time for that because we don't want to go 3 hours. And they said that starting with 9 p.m., which is in 1 hour, they're predicting snowstorm here in Chicago. So I don't plan to broadcast if we indeed go through the snowstorm. Second, but violence is regional. So it's not just in one part of Nigeria. It goes through different parts and it's not equal. In some parts it's more, in some parts it's less. Okay. Number 3, this is a religious conflict, but it isn't only religious in nature. And I want to read a little bit about this to give the context. A tangle of different factors are at play in Nigeria. A significant factor is power and control. The extremists all want control to rule over the land and the people who live there. Another is probably they meant poverty. I think they misspelled poverty. Another one is poverty. If you have nothing, you are susceptible to radicalization by Islamist groups. For the Fulani people, who are mostly nomadic herders, a real factor is scarcity of resources brought on by climate change, which has driven herding groups further south in search of fertile land for their cattle. This is compounded by Christians owning most of the farming land. I didn't know this. However, elements of the Fulani tribe have been radicalized with violent Islamist ideology that justifies subjugating Christians as infidels. This creates an environment where religion is a key component of the violence. Number four, yes, Christians are being targeted. Okay, we know this. And I think they may also mention that it's not just Christians, but they're predominantly Christians who are being targeted. It's not just in Nigeria. Okay, so we read here about other countries like Sudan, Burkina Faso, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Mozambique, other parts of that whole big region. We must listen to the victims. Okay, that's a good point. Number seven, we need to stop debating controversial terms and instead speak up now. And they're talking about genocide, how it's to be taken. Is it really genocide? Is it not? Personal, not, blah, blah, blah. Number eight, the media hasn't always gotten it right. Yes, as we know this to be correct about just everything in life. Number nine, people losing faith that the government will actually act. So, as we read this in the previous article, actually 2 articles ago, I think it was Open Doors USA. The new president is in Nigeria is slightly better than the previous one, but since both of them are Muslim and Nigeria is, I think, known as a corrupted nation. How much of that fight they can really, are they even willing or able financially to sponsor against such a powerful terrorist organizations as Boko Haram? I don't even know how much they're willing to sacrifice their own military and soldiers against, Boko Haram and others. And number 10, you can make a difference. Of course, you can pray, you can donate for the Bibles, for the destroyed houses, churches, and such, and similar to organizations such as Open Doors and similar. Any brief comment on this short article, and then we're switching to the first video.
Yeah, I'm glad that they messaged or that they spoke about the mentioned, that's the word I was trying to think of. I'm glad that they mentioned the herder farmer conflict, because that's it's only gotten worse as the herders have to go south, and now with modern antibiotics they're able to travel further south into the more tropical regions uh, that were previously they couldn't go that far south because there were certain fly infestations and other things that they had to take into consideration. But now they're able to keep their herds even further south. So they're trampling all over the Christian farmer territory. And so yeah, there's going to be conflicts. I hope the government does get involved and redivide up some of those resources so that everyone can have access to the resources. If they don't, you know, the way that I don't know how people perceive rural Nigeria, but these are all heavily armed. I mean, guns are really easy to get in Nigeria. So you're thinking of, a herdsman out there with a pistol on his hip. That's probably not accurate. He probably has an AK-47. So when they're going through these towns, there's a lot of violence that they can do to the people.
Shaun, something crossed my mind before clicking play on this YouTube video. Have you heard of the movie that came out in 2011 called Machine Gun Preacher?
No, I've never heard of it.
Oh my God, I thought you know. Okay, so Gerard Butler is playing in this movie, and I've seen it when it came out, so I forgot most of it. But listen to this. This is an AI overview. Machine Gun Preacher, which is the title, is a biopic based on the true story of Sam Childers, a former drug addict and biker who became a Christian and founded an orphanage in Sudan. While the film accurately depicts his life's trajectory and his dedication to rescuing children from the Lord's resistance army, it takes creative liberties by compressing timelines and amplifying the action sequences. The movie is considered 80-85% accurate according to the screenwriter, but the character's struggle with relapse in the film is a significant point of fiction. So basically, so most of the story or most of the material in the movie is true, and this guy, a former gangbanger, he becomes a Christian in the States, and he goes to Sudan to start working with children, and he's there being opposed, as much as I remember. Again, this was from long ago, by this either terrorist or the local aggressive militia. I don't remember if someone can write in the comments if they were Muslims, but he goes there, and what I consider back then as something very stumbling to my faith, he uses guns to defend the orphanage and the children against all these terrorists in Sudan. He's a preacher who goes and kills on people to defend the kids. So if someone can, from the chat, if you guys saw the movie, again, came out in 2011, Machine Gun Preacher, if you can confirm if he was fighting against Muslim terrorists or they were just local idiots and gangsters in Sudan. But yeah, I see you didn't see the movie. I was hoping that you can maybe give me your parallel or your analysis of the movie and how we can compare this to the idea of the holy war, just war, and because this is in Sudan. So in Sudan, Christians are persecuted. Yeah, I don't see any comments in the chat that people saw the movie. I'm surprised. It was a big deal when it came out. But yeah, anyway, I just thought if you saw the movie, you can make some parallels with what's happening in Nigeria, and if this will be justified, because he literally takes machine guns and goes and protects children against this terrorist organization. I was just wondering, how would you take that movie, since it's based predominantly on a true story? How would you take that idea? If we take also the Bible, will that be justified?
I would love to see the movie, so that might have to be something that I look into, because that sounds awesome. But yeah, I think you're going to get different opinions from different people when talking about just war. Whether or not it's ever permissible to take up weapons in the defense of others. Certain Christians will say no, it's never permissible, and that it is our lot to suffer. And other Christians would say, yeah, absolutely, take up weapons to defend not just others, but also yourself from people who mean you harm. So I guess it would depend on who you ask.
Hey, you know what? Let's watch the trailer, okay? I didn't plan on this, but it's only 2.5 minutes, okay?
I've done a lot of things that I ain't proud of. Hurt a lot of people.
You can't keep going the way you've been going.
Help me. I don't got no good shoes, Lynn.
I'm here today to talk to you about families just like yours, half a world away, that desperately need your help.
I was thinking maybe I could go over there.
Africa?
Reckon they can do with all the help they can get. I'll be back before you know it. You in the army or something?
We are freedom fighters.
I'm Sam. Nice to meet you. I want to go into Sudan this weekend. Need someone to show me around.
This is a war zone. If you stay here, you're going to get killed.
It's safer to sleep here than in their own homes.
They ain't sleeping out here.
There are too many. You can't help them all.
We gotta take as many as we can. Tell the other ones we'll come back later. I need the money for an extra vehicle so that I can save some children.
Calm down.
Don't tell me to calm down! That's the orphanage that I'm gonna build in Sudan.
They talk about you, the children.
Just trying to help these people. Same as you. Being
entire rebel army has put a bounty on your head.
I must be doing something right.
They burn it down.
Nothing left. It's over.
Get off your butt and build it again. You hear me?
Sam, wait!
See, we'll wait and get you!
This place does not need more guns.
Why don't you fight the evil in this place your way and let me fight it mine? Helping you kids is about the only good thing I've ever done in this life. You got no idea what I'm saying, do you?
Oh man, again, because I was such a pacifist before, this movie really made me not stumble in my faith, but like, nah, no, this is a bad movie. How can Christians go? But now, after God changing me over years, I'm thinking like this could be just like another David. You're going to slay so-called giants. Not that they're giants in any shape or form, but if giants, like we covered in some recent episodes, would be the best explained as tyrants, he then could be doing in a way God's work. And I got goosebumps because of those children. And I'm very sensitive to children being safe, being protected, not being harmed, because children anywhere in the world, regardless of color, race, ethnicity, religion, they're innocent. So we should protect them. And he's doing that. And I was like, man, and it's Sudan. It's not that far from Nigeria. So I was just thinking like, man, what would be Shaun's input on this, connected with, including children being killed in Nigeria, and then someone like this going and like fighting back,
Maybe that's an idea for a future episode. We watch the movie and then comment on it.
Yeah, I watched the movie long ago. I'll have to watch again. But yeah, I just wanted to share this with you and with the audience because I think it was interesting. Okay, so this is a 7-minute video. I clicked play speed 1.25, so hopefully we'll be done in 5 minutes.
For years, CBN News has reported about the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. Tens of thousands have died at the hands of Islamic terror groups Boko Haram, the Islamic State West Africa province, and Fulani herdsmen. Now some legacy media outlets are finally reporting what we've been telling you all along. So what can be done now that the plight of Nigerian Christians is receiving broader attention right here in America and around the world? The first step is prayer. Pray. Ask the Holy Spirit what he would have you do, how he wants you and your church to respond. And you can begin on Sunday, November 2nd, the International Day of Prayer for the Persecuted Church, not only for Nigerian Christians, but persecuted followers of Jesus worldwide. Joining us with more is Todd Nettleton, Voice of the Martyrs Media Relations Chief and host of VOM Radio. Todd, let's discuss Nigeria in a moment, but first, around the world, Christians and their churches will be praying for persecuted Christians. Why?
You know, Gary, the great thing about the International Day of Prayer for Persecuted Christians is it wasn't our idea at Voice of the Martyrs. It's certainly not some kind of marketing program. This is the first thing that persecuted Christians ask us to do. Well, when we sit down with them and say, hey, how can we help you? We're going back to America. We're going to talk to Christians there. How can they help you? The first thing they ask us to do is to pray. And so the International Day of Prayer for Persecuted Christians is an answer to their request that we pray for them.
And Christians in Nigeria are in desperate need of prayer and action, I might add. So tell us the latest there. Senator Ted Cruz contends it's genocide. So how bad is it?
You know, for Christians in northern Nigeria, that they know every time they gather for worship, even if they are in their homes, even if they are going out to their fields, they are at risk. They are at risk of attacks, as you mentioned, Boko Haram, other radical Islamist groups that are active in northern Nigeria. And every year and every election cycle in Nigeria, we hear a government promise to solve this problem, promise to provide protection for religious minorities like Christians in the north. And every year we see more attacks and more people killed. So it's either a lack of will or a lack of ability, but our brothers and sisters in northern Nigeria are certainly suffering and, like I say, constantly at risk of attack.
Well, I mean, we're getting more attention on Nigeria now, so what needs to be done?
That's a great question. And certainly there are some political aspects of that. There are, strengthening the Nigerian response, strengthening the Nigerian police and military. But ultimately, this is a spiritual question. And Jesus said, the world hates me. And when you follow me, the world will hate you too. And our brothers and sisters in northern Nigeria are experiencing the reality, the truth of what Jesus said. The Bible also tells us as part of the body of Christ that when one part suffers, we're all supposed to feel that pain. So part of the answer to that question is we as Christians, we need to stand with our Nigerian brothers and sisters. We need to pray for them. We need to help when they're persecuted, when their homes are destroyed, when their husbands are killed. We need to be willing to stand with them and encourage them and provide for them. So that's a part of the answer to that question as well.
Well, elsewhere, this year for IDOB Sunday, VOM is putting special prayer emphasis on the DRC. Why the Democratic Republic of Congo?
You know, we've seen so many violent attacks, even in the last few months in DRC. There are more than 100 armed groups that are fighting in the country of Democratic Republic of the Congo right now. And many of them are motivated by that Islamist ideology. The same ideology that motivates Boko Haram in Nigeria is motivating some of the groups in DRC that are attacking churches, targeting pastors, and especially targeting Christians. And like I say, the level of violence is just almost unconscionable what they are doing to our Christian brothers and sisters. And so we want to raise awareness of that. We want people to be able to pray effectively. And so one of the things we do each year for the International Day of Prayer for Persecuted Christians is a short video that you can share in a church service, in a Sunday school class, even with your family and your family devotions time. And this year, that video focuses on DRC.
And they can get that at VOM or download it, or how do they get it?
Persecution.com/IDOP for International Day of Prayer, persecution.com/IDOP. The video is free. You can download it. We'll even send you a DVD. If you prefer to have a solid copy of it, we'll send a DVD to you. We want people to know these stories. We want people to pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters.
And Todd, you've been serving the persecuted church with VOM for about 25 years now, correct?
Yeah, a little more than that.
Yeah, a little more than that. So is the persecution against followers of Jesus around the world getting worse? What troubles you the most about it?
You know, I think, yes, persecution is increasing, and that's sort of the hard side of that story. The good side of that story is part of the reason for that is the church is growing. The church is growing in North Africa, where Christians are often persecuted by their families. The church is growing in China, where the communist government is doing everything they can to shut it down. The church is growing in Iran, which means there are more Christians and more house church leaders that are available to arrest if you're the government of Iran. And so I try to be encouraged by the fact that the church is growing, even though I know it is coming at a high cost for our brothers and sisters in some of those countries.
So that's the hope, more church growth through the persecution, right?
Absolutely. You know, Tertullian said, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. We see the reality of that around the world. As Christians are persecuted, they have opportunities to respond with love and forgiveness. And that's an incredible testimony to the truth of the gospel.
And lead people to Christ, just like your founders, Richard and Sabina Wormbrand did. Okay. The International Day of Prayer is Sunday, November 2nd, but we should be praying not only on that day, but every day, right, Todd?
Absolutely.
There's less than a minute left, and they're just doing the concluding part of this short interview. Shaun, what are your thoughts? Are the Christian persecutions and stories about these persecutions exaggerated, or like we saw in this interview, they're very real?
I think they're very real. I think it's also very complicated. Africa is a place of many different ethnicities. And so you have people in Nigeria, there's multiple ethnicities that make up the people of Nigeria. So they're kind of living in their own people groups. It's not like it is in America where you have somewhat mixed populations. They like to stick to themselves. And so when you have groups that are converting to Christianity within those ethnicities, they don't just leave. They stay in those places. And then there's warfare between ethnicities where this people group hates this people group. So you can't just take a section, take all the Christians of this one people group and relocate them to South Nigeria where it's all Christian and they'd be safe, because then they would be persecuted for their ethnicity. Africa is its own really difficult place. Like I said, here in America, we may joke about, oh, that person's Irish or whatever, but anymore, we're not persecuting them for that. They're just another person. And so you have, the Irish, the French, the German, the English, the Scottish, you have all these people blending together. That's not happening in Africa. You have ethnicities that have been there forever that are their own tribal groups, and they don't play well with others. And so you can't just say, well, that's kind of the problem that makes this whole thing seem almost disingenuous, is it's like, yeah, it is Christians, and yeah, the Christians are suffering. But if you were to take these group of Christians and move them south to be amongst their Christian brothers and sisters, they would be killed for being the wrong ethnicity. And so, yes, it is Christians, but it's more complicated than that. There's more going on than just that. And so we have to, on one hand, Yeah, pray for the Christians, pray for the pray that God's hand would move. But on the other hand, you also have to recognize that this is an entirely different culture than what we think of in the West. They're not a liberal culture. They're very traditional in their the way that they interact with each other. So yeah, you can't really just ham-fisted come up with ham-fisted result or responses that would result in greater tragedy, like what you saw in Rwanda, where the Hutus and Tutsis were killing each other based solely on ethnicity.
Yeah, also it reminds me, even though it's not the same topic, it reminds me sometimes when I speak with other people about certain biblical passages or a subject in the Bible. Some people, and I used to be like this long ago, they see the Bible as black and white. You can't smoke, you can't drink, you can't have a tattoo, you're going to hell. It's like, Bible is turning into this legalism and moralism. In the same way, that approach is false. We can parallel that in the situation in Nigeria. It's not as simple to say, oh, Muslim extremists are killing Christians. Yes, and like you said, no, it's like more deeper than that. It's not so black and white. There's so many layers, so many details we need in order to understand better. I'm just going to read one paragraph from this article, then I'm going to play video, and I hope to be done within 20, max 25 minutes. This is an article that came out recently. It says this week, President Trump, so this was probably, this past week, President Trump threatened to send the U.S. military into Nigeria for not doing enough to protect Christians. For years, Nigeria has struggled to curtail violence across the country, from international terrorist groups to disputes between farmers and herders. But now, its leadership must face threats from both its internal adversaries and the White House. I'm just going to read this. Nigeria and its 236 million people, it's a huge country when you take the population, comprise the most populous nation in Africa, roughly split between Christians and Muslims. For years, it's struggled to curtail violence across the country, from international terrorist groups to disputes between farmers and herders, as we heard. I just wanted to read that number so that people will see it's a huge deal. We're not talking about small country. We're not talking about an insignificant part of the land somewhere out there. We're talking about a large number of people and a large number of innocent people, Muslims and Christians, suffering from this, terrorist organization. So let me just enlarge the screen and just play this other video. And I also put 125 speed for the sake of time.
This week, President Trump threatened to send the U.S. military into Nigeria and to cut off American aid for not doing enough to protect Nigerian Christians. Nigeria and its 236 million people comprise the most populous nation in Africa, roughly split between Christians and Muslims. For years, it's struggled to curtail violence across the country, from international terrorist groups to disputes between farmers and herders. But now, as Nick Schifrin reports, its leadership must face threats from both its internal adversaries and from the White House.
In Nigeria's northeast, the carcass of a truck is still smoking. An office building's facade is burned black, and an army pickup charred beyond recognition. All targets of Islamic State West Africa province, which 2 weeks ago filmed as it torched a military barracks and launched simultaneous attacks across 4 districts. For years, Islamist terrorists have plagued northern Nigeria. Best known as Boko Haram, they haven't only targeted the military. Boko Haram violently opposes female education, and in 2014 kidnapped 276 schoolgirls. 82 remain in captivity. It's bombed mosques, blowing up this place of prayer in 2014, killing 120. Boko Haram has also targeted Christians, as I saw in 2015 in the eastern city of Mubi.
Outside the nearby Church of the Brethren, the damage is everywhere. Inside, high above the podium, the fire set by Boko Haram almost erased the cross from the wall. 16 parishioners died. Ilya Usman is the church's secretary.
When these people landed in Mubi, they will ask you, are you a Christian or a Muslim? When you say you're a Christian, they will shoot you. There's no one single church left in Mubi. They burnt it.
They still do. In 2022, the Nigerian government says members of Al-Shabaab, usually based in Somalia, attacked this church in southwest Nigeria. The floor was still stained from 50 parishioners slaughtered as they attended Sunday Mass. Nigeria says it's reduced terrorism, although it's identified a new group with international links in the northwest called Lakurawa. Most Nigerian Muslims live in the north, most Christians live in the south, and in the middle, the two groups overlap, as do tribes, farmers, and herders, who can clash violently. For decades, nomadic herders, almost all of whom are Muslim, have fought farmers, most of whom are Christian, over land disputes and scarce resources. The independent conflict monitor ACLED tells PBS NewsHour last year's data show a rise in Christian fatalities, mostly in central Nigeria. And this year, there's been a 43% increase in attacks by Fulani herders over last year. But the vast majority of the incidents were over land disputes, not targeting because of religion. This June, at least 150 displaced people staying at a Catholic mission were killed. The community blamed Muslim Fulani herders. Attacks like this one have led to the White House.
Do you envisage U.S. boots on as well? Could be. I mean, a lot of things I envisage, a lot of things. They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria.
Last month, President Trump designated Nigeria a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act. And last weekend wrote he may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing.
The government doesn't help the Christians. They're not protecting them. They're not protecting their villages.
Nina Shea directs the Hudson Institute's Center of Religious Freedom. She and 30 other advocates, Christian organizations, and think tanks wrote a letter in October to President Trump saying the Nigerian government demonstrably tolerates relentless aggression uniquely against Christian farming families.
Why do you think that a lot of this violence is purely directed at Christians when there's also Muslim on Muslim violence, Christian on Christian violence, and the government itself has failed to stop all the violence regardless of the victim?
Well, the government tries to stop the violence. It is fighting military warfare against Boko Haram and Islamic State up in the north. And a number of other groups as well. It is not trying to arrest or prosecute or in any way rein in these Fulani herders. Local Christian leaders are telling us that they are trying to cleanse the land of Christians, that they are establishing the land for Islamic rule.
Nigeria's government insists it's taking steps to stop violence that targets all Nigerians.
As a responsible government, we refuse to approach the fight against terrorism from a profiling point of view. That's why we discourage the idea that it is a targeted Christian, it's a hoax.
Daniel Bwala is a special advisor on the media to Bola Tinubu, who became Nigeria's president in 2023. Bwala grew up in Borno State, the epicenter of Boko Haram violence.
We lived through these experiences where we have a lot of our loved ones haven't been killed by Boko Haram when it started. The killings by the terrorists or the insurgents or the Boko Haram, it is not targeted at any particular religion.
But in central Nigeria, as you know, there are international organizations who are tracking more violence between herders, who are almost all of whom are Muslim, against farmers, most of whom are Christian. Why hasn't the government been able to reduce that violence?
It is a case of cattle rustling and then the case of incursion on people's land and land grabbing by the Islamic militia, so to speak. We have been dialoguing with the people and we have been sifting out and isolating criminal elements who are taking advantage of that situation to cause mayhem to our people.
But do you acknowledge that there are many Nigerians, Christians and Muslims, who feel that the government hasn't done enough to guarantee their security?
Yeah, I will not deny the fact that there will be many, and we have been saying that we have limitation of arms and ammunition. Our relationship with America will help strengthen this fight.
Historically, the U.S. and Nigerian militaries have trained together and shared intelligence to target terrorist groups. But in a country that is generally pro-American, President Trump's threats caused widespread criticism. The government offers collaboration.
When President Trump said what he said, we took it in good faith. You know, we feel like it's a message that calls for a sitting down so we can broaden this conversation around what we need. Donald Trump, quite frankly, is one president that African people celebrate the most because he's not politically correct about any opinion he holds. We don't need interpreter to tell us that Donald Trump thinks well about Nigeria. That's why we don't take what he says hook, line, and sinker. He has done that to almost everybody. He even threatened to turn Canada to a state. He dragged the South African president to the White House.
Death, death, death.
He did that to Zelensky.
And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country.
We look at the psychology and we work around that. And what we're trying to do is to pass the message through the base, his consumer base, to understand that that hoax is not a reflection of what the Nigerian people are.
But the violence is real, and they've led to real threats of American intervention against a historic African partner. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.
Lord help me, but that last image from the church, it looks like a butcher's house. It looks horrible. And this guy, Daniel, I forgot his last name, that is one of the advisors for the newly elected Nigerian president. He's just trying to play it like, oh, Donald Trump thinks well, and America thinks well of Nigeria. We took this as a good step in faith. No, they're rebuking you. They're telling you if you don't do something to help Christians, someone else will have to. So they're trying to play it like, oh yeah, this and that, but it's not all that well. How did you take this, both the statistics in the first half of the video, and then the interview with Mr. Daniel in the latter part of the video?
Well, so the interview with Daniel, what I took from it was, I thought what he was saying is, hey, the president is saying, if you can't get that stuff under control, I'm going to come in and control it for you. And he's saying, good, yes, we need help. Like, we need money, resources, manpower, ammunition. We need all that. So put all that on a plane and bring it to us, and then we can fix this problem, because we know it's a problem, but there's nothing we can do about it. And I think that's where he was saying, yeah, he acknowledges that people would say the government hasn't done enough. There's limitations. There's a limitation of money. There's a limitation of resources. And so America could provide that to him, so that way he would be able to properly direct, hey, if we can go here and here and here, and set up some sort of security barriers that would prevent this interaction between the herders and the farmers, that would be awesome. Now, as far as, the Islamic State, and I think it's Islamic State West African province, and the Boko Haram, I think those are two things that Nigeria would love to see eradicated. I don't know if the president is offering to do that, but that would be awesome to have those taken out for Nigeria's sake. But the last thing that we need is another war on terror.
Thank you for that. And we'll be done probably within minutes. I just want to say that I have more resources to share, but I think it's been enough for tonight. I want to just show the screen of those articles I plan on mentioning tonight and talking, but we won't. We'll save our breath, and the snowstorm may be coming, and we've been already going live for an hour and a half, so it's kind of enough. But yeah, you can. I shared this article with Congressman Moore, who introduces resolution condemning the persecution of Christians in Nigeria. And here you can have all these dates, numbers, statistics, regions, different people being included, involved in the whole this political slash religious slash military problem. And also, I mean, not just from Nigerian perspective, but also from the American perspective, and how people here, I would say predominantly on the right wing of political atmosphere in the country, how they're reacting. And you can see a bunch of tweets and interviews. I didn't check any of those, but I still found this because it's coming officially from the congressman. I thought this article would be beneficial to be shared. Another one is from a friend who was once a guest on the podcast a while ago, John Daniels. This is his website, Theology in 5. He writes a number of articles on so many things: theology, engineering, divine counsel, giants. What I like about Daniel is that whatever he writes about, he always checks with scholarly sources. So here he wrote a lengthy article, which I thought we would dissect, but again, because of the sake of time, we won't. It was just written the other day, November 8th. Link again is in the video's description. And by the end of his article, what I like, what I said already about John Daniels, is he has this section 1 to know more, and he's citing all these experts, historians, scholars who want to get some legit official data and numbers and statistics. He's providing all of that by the end of his website. So I thought, hey, when he sent me the data, I said, hey man, because you're doing me a favor, I'll do the honor and mention you to give you the credit, so his website can also grow. The last one, which I will not play, but I will just share how different media put the same story in different perspective. They're all making it exaggerated by the political right-wing movement in America, and also by Christians. They're here interviewing the same guy Daniel, but how, and they titled this reaction to Trump's Christian genocide, put in quotation marks, in Nigeria comments. And so, and the same guy, Daniel, here is saying how all of that is exaggerated and it's not true. And when I saw that it's coming from BBS, look, I'm coming from the Balkans. We had our share in wars, including civil wars in the 90s. Since I was a teenager in the 90s, I learned not to trust BBC and CNN. Even then. So from like 30 years ago, I learned this. So I was watching a little bit the other night, but like just check out, don't just listen to the video. If you want to, you can, but don't just listen. Read the comments of people, both in the States and in Africa, who are commenting. All of them, if not, maybe not all of them, but most of them are saying how this guy is not speaking truth and how he is also a Muslim working for a Muslim president and how the truth is way worse. You just read the comments because you cannot fake the comments. There are like dozens of them saying that the truth is not as Daniel is being, portraying. Well, he's part of the narrative in this interview. So I would just encourage people who have time, check out the comments. But I just want to say, coming from BBC and CNN, since the 90s, I learned not to trust these two media houses because for me they're like the epitome of everything false and deceiving. Shaun, thank you so much for spending time with us in this hour and 35. Hey, we finished before 2 hours. Any concluding thoughts for this very heavy topic? And of course, I would invite everyone, please join us Friday. I'll be interviewing L.A. Marzulli, who many Christians like, some may not like, and he spent his life in researching fringe topics, including giants. So supposedly he has a lot of data, including skeletons and bones of giants. So I'll be interviewing him. I bought a couple of his books years ago. He is well known in Christian fringe medias, including podcasts, YouTube channels, and things of that sort. So I hope you guys will come this Friday. I will just have to see what time we schedule the interview. We'll be talking about those things. Sunday, Shaun and I will be back. We'll see what topic we'll cover. It could be the movie I was talking about, The Machine Gun Preacher, or maybe something else. But yeah, more fun and interesting topics are coming, so please share this material. Everything we do is completely free. Subscribe, share material, like, comment, helps us and blesses us a lot. And if you ever come to Christ, or maybe you're thinking about living Christ, but our podcast, our material, our episodes give you some help, give you some encouragement, give you some answers to the difficult questions you may be having, please always comment. That brings a tremendous blessing to our hearts. So this will be my concluding thoughts for just a couple of minutes. I'm reading and looking at the last live chats, but there's nothing I wanted to address those. But yeah, that's it. So Shaun, you have the honor to do the concluding thoughts to anything I mentioned in the last 5 minutes and the overall this very heavy topic we had for tonight.
Yeah, I would say pray for Nigeria, pray for persecuted Christians everywhere, pray for your leaders that they can come up with responses that fit the crises that are happening at the local level, because as we've seen here, some of the issues that that are happening is it's so complicated that you really can't take something outside like America and just say, hey, we're just going to solve this problem for you without relying on the leadership there in Nigeria. So pray for your local leaders that God would help them and direct them and give them the resources needed for the sustaining and the flourishing of human life. The news does lie. They spin stuff. So depending on your algorithms, you may actually be fed a false narrative on what the topic is. So try to find unbiased sources so that way you can have a better idea of what's happening. Christians are being persecuted in Africa. I wouldn't say it's a genocide. I would say it's persecution. And they are being targeted, but not necessarily on the level that we're being told. All right.
You know what? I'll give 30 seconds to the audience to decide if they want us to cover either the Gospel of Nicodemus for the next Sunday or this movie Machine Gun Preacher. So you guys have 30 seconds to type which material you want us to cover next Sunday. So whichever voices prevailed, whichever topic, we'll do it. So if there's any vote, now it's your time to type it. If not, then it will be between Shaun and me in the next few days. Which I mean, we'll cover both of these eventually. But I thought if you guys have a okay, Shaun, your mom is saying Machine Gun Preacher. Let's give a few more seconds for others, including Ember, if they have any idea or suggestion. They want a movie or gospel. You know why I want to cover the Gospel of Nicodemus? Because it has all this about Hades and Jesus going there and conversation supposedly with Satan. I was like, man, just the same way we covered that Gospel of Jesus' infancy, which is of course false, but it was still fun to cover. So I was like, man, this will be even more fun to cover because of that background.
The
Okay,
Gospel
well,
of
we have
Nicodemus reminds me of the stories that we read, the first book of Adam and Eve. That's the same writing style, and yeah, I've really enjoyed the Gospel of Nicodemus, so I look forward to covering that topic too.
Yeah. Okay, so we got your mom, we got our brother Del Mysterio, and we have Scuba Dude. All of them saying Machine Gun Preacher. So it's settled in stone, man. It's 3 versus 1, and Ember probably left, so she didn't even type. Okay, so next Sunday we'll be covering the movie because you wanted that, and again Friday, either late afternoon or very early evening, I'll have this first interview with Eli Marzulli, who is honestly very well known in Christian Fringe podcast because of the supernatural topics and things he covered. He went on expeditions. He discovered some stuff. He has, I have his books. They're full with photos of these elongated skulls, weird-looking skulls for him. These are proving the giants existed not just in biblical times, but I think it also post biblical times. I'll have to skim through these books because there's a lot of material and do at least one episode with him. And if he likes it, maybe I can have him again. But I promise to you, this will be fun to a lot of people. And Ember called us lame. We love you too, Ember, and we see you Friday. God bless.